Keep talking about this John 15 passage today. Title of my lesson is Meno. Meno. You know, right? You know Meno? You don't know? All right, I'll fill you in. I like to give a table of contents before we get going. We're going to talk about the Gap, not the store, the Gap. Westerns, about how we're not supposed to be better people. The vow of stability, gyrovagues, the legacy of the Pioneer Valley Church. Ooh, no. Shears, winning the future now, no clean farmers, and the feast. I always like to give one out. Okay, you're going to stay. Sounds good. Back to this John 15 passage. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you that you would go and bear fruit, and that your fruit would remain, so that whatever you ask of the Father in my name, he may give you. This is a fantastic promise from Jesus. Actually, it's a few fantastic promises from Jesus, that he chose and appointed you, that you're going to go and bear fruit, your fruit's going to remain, and anything you ask from God, he's going to give it to you? Like, come on. Yeah. You could walk out right now and just be like floating on air for the rest of the day if you believe these things. But I have trouble with this passage and passages like it because I can feel in my life a gap between the promises of Jesus and my lived experience as a Christian. I believe that the things that Jesus says are true, that he meant them and that they are happening in the world, but then my actual life happens. And I'm like, it doesn't feel as juicy as it's supposed to be. Is that one better? Let's find out, right? That's how my life feels. It's deflating. Thank you, Allie. I came in with such high hopes. And then my life's a little too weighty and it just... And I think, what gives? Like, Jesus promised it. I'm trying to live this way. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, come on.
Where's the fruit? Where's the juice? Where's the nutrition? Often my experience of spiritual formation, of becoming like Jesus, actually feels busy. Feels overfull, it feels draining, taxing, and ineffective. So what gives? Let's jump backwards, actually, in verse 1 of this passage. We're going to stay in John 15 for basically the entirety of our time together. Here in verse 1, Jesus starts this whole idea by saying, I, Jesus, am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser, or the gardener. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it so that it will bear even more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit of itself, but must remain in the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. You don't pay me to tell you that you should be closer to Jesus, right? You probably came here this morning thinking, I should spend a little bit more time with Jesus. Jesus seems to be a pretty important figure in the story, but none of this happens in our lives without first remaining in Jesus. He says, there is no fruit that you can possibly bear without me. And in fact, if you want to bear fruit, there's going to be a process of pruning that happens in your relationship with me. As we gain Jesus, things are taken away and removed, and that's not a hurtful, negative process. That's actually a positive and redemptive process. The word there, remain or abide, it's the word Meno. Meno. He says, if you Meno in me, I'm going to Meno in you. The more literal translation, if you make your home in me, if you find safety and comfort and rest in me, then I will remain with you. And so, yes, my lived experience can feel busy and overfull, but the promise of Jesus always starts with relationship to Jesus. But Meno, I know I'm supposed to remain. You've probably read this passage 10, 20, 100 different times, and you're like, I know I'm supposed to be close to Jesus. I read, I pray, I sit in silence sometimes. I go on long prayer walks. I do so many things. I listen to podcasts or read books, and I'm trying to get closer to Jesus, but the gap still remains. Why is my lived experience of discipleship not fruitful? Why is it not juicy? I think it's because often we aim our goal of spiritual formation in the wrong direction. I think we think about spiritual formation in a wrong way, or at least I think about spiritual formation in a wrong way, and so I get bad results. You ask bad questions, you get bad answers. Spiritual formation is not about my own self-fulfillment. It's not about my growth. It's not about my finding balance or finding peace. And you might start tensing up here because you're like, wait, isn't it about all these things? No, all true spiritual formation is for other people.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
There's the gap. The gap between my hope and Jesus' promises and then my lived experience is an ignorance of other people. Real spiritual formation is for others. It's about becoming love for the sake of other people. All true spiritual formation is for community, and it's from community. And that's what we're going to break down here for a little bit. I'm not saying individuality is not important, that Jesus doesn't love you specifically, right? God made you specifically as who you are, and he loves you. But I think the pendulum might have swung too far in the wrong direction here in the last 100 to 150 years, as Western values, I call it cowboy Christianity, has started to take over the church. This feeling of individualism. I got to protect my freedoms. I come and go as I please. I'm my own man. Like, have you guys ever seen a Western? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just a man and his horse. You know what I'm saying? What could be better? Big blue sky, pistol, saddlebags. No one can tell me what to do. I'm going to go rob a train, right? Like, and it sounds ridiculous. But so often, I see myself and I see others try to live out their faith this way. Yeah. It's me and the horse. I don't need my gang, my bandits or whatever. I'm going to flee the town and go out into the country and do it my own way. Yeah. You think, I would never do that, right? But how often in our lives do we live as cowboy Christians? I'm going to do what's sensible and convenient for me. That over there, community, conflict, no, that's too messy. We don't do that. That sounds insane, right? Being vulnerable and exposed in front of other people, digging deep into their lives and having them know me deeply, it's too messy. And so I'm just going to do my own thing. I got this new podcast, got a couple of books. I don't know, there's some YouTube series that I'm going to watch. I'm just going to kind of do my own thing spiritually. I'll get close to Jesus. Everything will be great. But relationship with Jesus is not a solo mission. It is never meant to be cowboy Christianity. And the danger now today in the 21st century is that we are drowning in spiritual content, and we're using it as a substitute for Christian community.
Say that again.
Sure, if I can remember how I said it. We are drowning in spiritual content, and we're using it as a substitute for Christian community. I had such a spiritual week. I listened to the entirety of The Cost of Discipleship on an audiobook in my commute. I'm doing awesome. I haven't seen anybody in a week. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I read all of Life Together. I didn't spend any of my life together with disciples. But I'm doing great, right? And you can, the scary part is you can do that superficial thing for a long time and learn a lot of Greek words and find a lot of good podcasts. And it's shallow. At the end of the day, there's a lot of vines and not a lot of fruit. And the problem is droves of people are leaving the church right now because they think they can do it by themselves. Yes. They experience hurt in the church. If you're new here, hurt happens. It's going to happen. Right. They experience conflict. They experience exposure. Somebody says the wrong thing. There's a miscommunication. Right. And they miss out on the communal experiences that are meant to produce fruit. Totally. Conflict producing love. Right. Mutual suffering producing joy. Miscommunication producing peace. Vulnerability producing patience. This is all meant to happen in community. All true spiritual formation is for community, and it's from community. And so I asked you, are you feeling the gap this morning? Is there a gap between Jesus' promises and your lived experience? I would urge you to start looking around and going, do I know these people? Am I known by them? Have I seen Jesus in my relationships in the church? I can tell you what, I've lived in a lot of different places and a lot of different churches, and I've gotten pretty good at skating by relationally without any depth or risk. I can tell you guys the same stories for 3 years, and then I dry up, and then I'll just go somewhere else. Sounds funny, but Maryland to Virginia for 4 years, Virginia to Spokane, 1.5 years, Spokane to Seattle, 4-ish years. Got my amazing wife out of it, so it went pretty good. After about 4 years, COVID hit. Hey, let's get out of here. We're going to go to the Tri-Cities. That's about 3 years. Now we're here. It's been about two plus years. And I can feel the clock ticking. Right. Because if I stay any longer, you guys are really going to get to know me. Do I want that? Yeah, come on. We want that. I'm so grateful for Jack and everything he shared in communion. And part of what's been so edifying and awesome about living here is being able to pour into people who are just like a step or two behind me in life. but I didn't expect them to start pouring back into me and calling me higher and challenging me. Those Summers boys, they have a way of like getting right under your skin and being like, who are you really? And it's been so cool to be here, but I can feel the tension. Jesus calls me to Meno, to stay, to remain, to make your home in him. But implicit in that command is the need to remain in community, to remain with other people. It reminds me of Matthew 22. You probably know it. Verse 35 says, and one of them, a lawyer, asked Jesus this question, testing him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Some versions say, and all your strength. And this is the great and the foremost commandment, and the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Upon these two commandments hang the whole law and the prophets. And other translations say that the second command sits beside the first command, like on a bench. They're inseparable. You cannot possibly love God to your fullest extent without loving the people of God.
That's right.
To your fullest extent. All meaningful formation is found in loving community. And so I would ask you, what if loving Jesus well means loving the community of Jesus well? What if Jesus is trying right now to transform you and mold you and make you more like him through the shared work of loving one another?
Right.
I love Jesus. He's so cool. He says so many cool things. But I worry about all these Christians.
Right.
I want to know Jesus. I'm even willing to know his sufferings, but I don't want to know about the sufferings of my brothers and sisters. I don't want them to know about mine. How many of our brothers and sisters are suffering this morning in silence because they don't know and they are not known? We're called to love Jesus through community, and this has been a long-standing struggle in God's church. This is not a new problem. This is not a 21st century problem. This is not a TikTok problem. This is not because we have too many podcasts or too much content, really. The problem is in the human heart. There's somebody, he's a monk. His name's Saint Benedict. You might have heard of him before. And as monasticism, these abbeys were popping up all over the place, they needed a set of rules. Like, how are we going to live together? How are we going to do this thing? And St. Benedict came up with a set of vows that any monk had to make before they were allowed in. And here's the craziest one. He said, if you want to be a monk in my abbey, you need to make a vow of stability. Some of us are like, I'd love to make a vow of stability right now. My life feels out of whack, right? Where do I sign? No, a vow of stability is a vow to stay put.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a vow to not pop and move around and, okay, on to the next one, or to hide once the conflict gets real.
Yeah.
Or just to move on. And no, it's a vow to stay put and to allow God to work on your heart through the hard work of staying in one place. He saw these monks, he called them gyrovagues. They're wanderers. These are monks who would show up in your monastery for a couple of days. They'd bring their little pack or something, their Cossack. I don't know, I can't remember all the monk terms. They'd show up and you'd give them a bed because, hey, we're a monastery, we're trying to be nice here, and they'd eat some food, and they wouldn't take too much, but they also wouldn't give anything back. And after about a week, they'd just move on to the next one, and on to the next one. Gyrovague means circle wanderers. Just wander in a circle, and guess what happens if you wander in a circle for long enough? You don't have to be responsible to anybody. I'm going to sell this really quick to you. No one has to know any of your secrets or any of your sin. It's pretty good, right? You can tell all your best jokes and stories and then just pop over to a new audience. It's great. That sounds amazing, right? Well, welcome to a life of fruitlessness. Welcome to a life of being liked, but never truly loved.
Come on.
It's right on the table for you. Take it. Take the offer. Just get out of here. There's like 20 churches. We've been walking around Northampton and Amherst. There's churches all the way up and down the street. You could hit each one for about a week and probably last like 6-7 months, maybe longer, right? You could do it. Maybe some of us are doing it this morning. Maybe you've been here for a long time, but you've been bouncing between groups and friend groups and discipleship partners. And you're not staying in any one place too long, because if you stay put for too long, they're going to get you. Do we have gyrovague tendencies? Are we shallow? Are we thrill-seeking? Are we wandering? Because functionally, this turns into functional atheism. What? I love Jesus. I'm at church every Sunday. But if I'm not known by God's people, if I'm not vulnerable and connected to the people of God, it's functional atheism. It's a love for Jesus divorced from a love for people. You know what love for Jesus without love for people is? It's love for yourself.
Right. That's right.
I use Jesus as a mirror, and I look for him to reflect back to me the things that I like about me. Because what happens if I use my community as a mirror? They're going to expose some things in my heart. They're going to show me some things about myself that I don't want to confront.
Come on.
I'll tell you what, I've been saying this to the students a whole lot. I can be remarkably like Jesus as long as I'm alone.
That's right.
You put me in a cabin in the woods with like some saltines or something, you would not believe how peaceful I could be, how joyful, how full of the fruits of the Spirit. But the second you make me interact with any of you people, the beast comes out. You know what I'm saying? I get impatient. I get angry. I start to say and do unloving things. My peace is shattered, and it's not your fault. It's in here. But I can't grow or heal or redeem any of these things without you. I need you desperately.
Come on.
I think we need each other much more than we give each other credit for. So I urge you, make a vow. Do it today. Make a vow of stability. Maybe you've been coming around and doing the church thing for a long time. Maybe you've been here 10, 20, 30 years, and you're starting to feel like the fruit is missing. You're not seeing it the way that you used to. Make a vow. I want to know and be known deeply here in this place. Maybe you've been bouncing between churches, or this is your first time ever coming to church. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's very cool that you got to worship together today. Try it. Try it for 40 days and just see what happens. Have lunch with people. Get to know them. Start sharing your life with them and see the fruit that God produces for 40 days. Choose to stay. Choose to remain. Choose to know others and be known by them. Choose to be hurt. Choose to be challenged. Choose to be made uncomfortable. Choose to laugh, to celebrate, to mourn, and endure together. Make a vow. I bring all this up because I've only been here for 2 years, but I think the legacy of the Pioneer Valley Church is a legacy of stability. And some of you guys have been here longer, you're like, what are you talking about? But I look at this congregation and I see tons of people who have chosen to stay, especially through some hard times. There's some challenging things. I've seen some nodding heads, and I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I'd love to do this. Raise your hand if you've been a member of this church for 10 years. 10 years. Keep your hand up. 2015, the number one hit song in America was Uptown Funk. 10 years. Y'all been doing this since Uptown Funk. Keep your hand in the air if you've been a member of this church for 20 years. Look at that, 20 years. 2005, that was Mariah Carey. We belong together.
What up, Ed?
The Mergados were in the car singing We Belong Together on the way to church 20 years ago. Keep your hand in the air. Keep your hand in the air if you've been here for 30 years.
Wow.
30 years!
Look at these pillars.
You want to know what the number one song in America was 30 years ago? Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio. Coolio has spent most of his life living in a gangsta's paradise. Tom Heaton has spent most of his life living in the Pioneer Valley Church. You can put your hands down. Whenever you see these individuals in the church, don't worship them, but revere them.
Yeah.
Walk up to these individuals and go, Coolio? Seriously? I think Third Eye Blind was popping off back then. I honor and I lift up these individuals because staying is risky.
Yeah.
Staying is hard. It's uncomfortable. It's draining. It's sacrificial. But staying is the soil for transformation.
That's right.
The people whose hands you saw are the people who have been hurt the most in the Pioneer Valley Church.
Right.
We're not keeping score, but if we did, they would have the highest HP at this point. They've been hit the most. And I can almost guarantee you these are the people who have been transformed the most by community. Who are the most changed from whatever, Uptown Funk, however long you were here, Coolio days. Go back to verse 2 really quick in John 15. We got to talk about how God transforms us in community. In verse 2, Jesus says, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it so that it may bear even more fruit. Jesus is talking about his own relationship with God here. But if Jesus is our master, if he's our rabbi, then I can almost assure you that the same things are going to happen to us. We talk about pruning sometimes, and you're like, someone stole my credit card, I'm being pruned, right? Like individual things that happen to us. And those things are hard. There's challenges there. I earnestly believe that true pruning, real pruning, happens through one another. Who are the pruners in your lives? Who are the people who are really pulling back the curtain and showing who you really are? How is Jesus speaking to you through one another? Pruning looks like exposure, forced or willing. It looks like the removal of our unhealthy bits. It looks like conflict, miscommunication, missed expectations, hurtful words, disappointment, and loss. It's friendships that are broken, and then repair, and then they're broken, and then repair, and they're broken, and they're repair, right? Jesus is saying that the most taxing parts of our life together are actually the most redemptive. Where are you going to experience resurrection more than in your relationships in this room? But I don't understand pruning. Not really. I'm not a pruner. I've barely cleaned up the bushes in our front yard, and I kind of botched it. And so I'm really not an expert. I'm not somebody who can actually talk to you about trimming and pruning and doing those things. But we have a solution. I'm going to introduce a new segment to our preaching here that I call Kevin Santa Cruz Teaches You About Trees. I'll explain a little bit here. Kevin, he'll explain it better than me. He studied trees in college. He's a professional tree man. Some are saying that he's more tree than man at this point. But I called him Wednesday or Thursday, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. And he talked for like 20 minutes. He was like, what about this and this and this? And I was so blown away by all of his insights that were like top of mind that I was like, Kevin has to share this stuff. We have some experts here, and we have some tools. I asked Elias if we could have a chainsaw in church, and he was like, I'm interested. And I said, that's not no. Wow. Kevin's Science Corner. This is so much better than I ever could have hoped for. Well, Kevin, you're probably going to want to use the green mic.
Oh, I forgot.
Can you explain to us, like, what do you do? Why are you up here?
What do I do? So I went to high school back in the North Shore and decided that I wanted to be an electrician at first, and then I was like, that's a little hard for me. That's numbers. Taggart's way better at that. And then I saw arboriculture, and I was like, what is this? And the first week of introduction to like classes, hey, we're going to teach you how to use a chainsaw and cut stuff, and then, climb this and have fun. And I asked the teacher, I'm like, so is this like I get paid money? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, really? Someone will pay me to show up at your house and trim your trees. And I'm like, sign me up. And then that was my journey, and it felt like God has guided me through this path because I love what I do. Because there's so many spiritual nuggets in tree work, in what I do, in what I see every day, what I learned throughout 2 years at UMass at the Stockbridge program, that I, even refreshing myself the past few days and reading some of these books, just a book about pruning and tree planting. And I was like, I remember running up to Emily, and I'm like, just yesterday, I'm like, I feel like I'm reading a spiritual guidebook, like how to like fix my life. And I'm like, when you have the lens of like tree work, I don't know, it's special. There's questions that we'll talk about. But
I think let's start at the beginning here. How do you know when a tree needs trimming?
How do you know when a tree needs trimming? So there is a lot of, technically a tree doesn't need trimming. There's trees in the woods, there's trees in the forest. They don't need trimming. There's dead wood there, like,
why not?
bad in the hanging branches. If you ever go on a hike with Dan Maroney in the woods and you bring a chainsaw, and because he texts you, and then I'm like, all right, sure. And then we go cut limbs that are on the path. But other than that, you don't need a maintenance them. But the trees that are in your front yard, the trees that are, there might be oil on that, but don't worry about it. They're permanently stained. There might be trees in your front yard through power lines. There might be trees that there are dead branches, and it's where you walk every day, and they're above you, and you might not realize it. Those are the trees that do need pruning, to remove that dead wood, or maybe to lighten up a load of a limb. Some limbs just get too big. It's like, I'm an alpha. Oh, and I'm like, no, you're not. We need to lighten you up because you're going to break because of all the pressure you're holding. And if a nice storm comes along, say an ice storm, we know what the weather is out here. And if something freezes up and it's too much weight, too much of a load, boom, that'll break, crash down your house, and we don't want that.
And
So
it's no fault of the tree to crash, but there's things you can do to prevent that.
there's
sounds
things you
like.
can do to prevent it, yeah.
So, okay, you find a tree, it's a gorgeous red oak or whatever, right? I don't know that many
No,
trees.
that's yeah.
Hey, maybe I know ball.
Shh, it's part of it.
You know you need to cut it, you know you need to trim it. How do you know where to start, what tools to use? Like,
Well,
walk me through your system. Your
so what's funny? That's my baby. That is my best friend.
my
When I'm
emotional security
doing
chainsaw.
a trim that I have to climb, there's some bigger limbs that are bigger than my hand, like 5-inch diameter or bigger. But
Sheesh.
looking for signs of decay. I'm looking at the tips of the leaves, on even some of the tall parts of the tree, because that's usually where a tree, if there's a problem down low, that means in the tips of the tree are dying or hurting. That means there's a problem in the roots. And that's something it's like, oh, but it's up there, but it's actually an underground problem. It's a root problem. It's a soil problem. It's like what's getting in here that is hurting this tree. It all starts with the trunk. So if you see stuff like that, it's like, oh, that's a red flag. And it's visual. You can kind of tell when a tree's mangled or just, that thing hasn't been touched in a while. So looking for signs of tip dieback, leaf decay. Oh, why is it falling and it's not even fall yet? Right now it's a bad time because it's about to be fall. But truly that, you look for signs of decay. You look for signs of insects. You look for signs of disease. Is there other trees that aren't helpful for this thing? Is there something choking it out down below? Is there a vine wrapped around it? If you see bugs, there's a diseases. Like what is, they're kind of like us. If we're hurting, if our skin's pale because we're sick, right? Or your glands swell up, you're like, oh, swallowing's kind of hard. Like there are signs, there are little signs that maybe sometimes other people can even notice. So they're very much like us. Trees are very much like us.
But if you know what to look for, it's almost like you can't help but see it. You're like, oh, that guy needs help.
Oh, yeah. Someone hasn't showered in a while. Someone has, I don't know. Someone hasn't brushed their teeth. And they, you want a mint? Like, or do you want, like, sometimes it can be minor, but it could also be signs of something more.
Right.
So, yeah, it's usually obvious.
And do you go chainsaw on everything?
This
is
I don't.
an incredible feeling, you guys. You have no idea.
Sometimes that's a little extra. Sometimes that's like when I have to take some big limbs. But
I don't know if it's extra enough.
My favorite tools to use are my handsaw and my hand snips because it usually means that something a little smaller and I can take my time going through it. These are all things that help me just reach up high into the canopy if I don't want to climb. Or if I'm like, all right, it's too high to get, but at least I know I have something that I don't need to go too big or too small. It's just kind of right in the middle. This is when the whole tree needs to come down. So, but
that's rare.
That's common.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Man.
Yeah.
So when do you make the final decision of like, okay, we need to start over from scratch here versus like, okay, there's trimming that can be done. I can kind of work around the edges.
can save this tree. It depends on how hurt it is. It depends on how far gone the tree has gotten. If the tree knows that a limb is, or if it's sick, or if a tree knows that, all right, this limb isn't getting sunlight anymore, it's just going to stop sending nutrients to that. And that's how just kind of deadwood kind of over time takes place. And that could be a normal thing, but if there's an abundance of it, if there's signs of like, wow, there's a lot of rot. There's a lot of rot where the tree should, that's a powerful union. That's like holding up this limb, and that's going to fail at any point. There's warning signs that you can see before. And sometimes you cut down a tree, and it's like, wow, this thing is beautiful, but there's a hole in the middle of it where you can just kind of stand in the, I wish I had sick photos of it. But I've stood in trees that I'm like, this thing looked alive. This looked healthy. How could I have seen before? Sometimes you can't. But if you pay attention and see the signs, sometimes like squirrels get in there, Like I'm just thinking of funny
Same
ways.
thing with people.
People, yeah, squirrels get in people. No. But yeah, there are warning signs, and trees usually tend to tell you what's wrong with them. And even if they're not saying anything, well, trees obviously can't say anything, but they're like, oh, like wow, why are we changing color right now? Like, all right, let's still investigate.
Right.
And like, oh wow, there's a emerald ash borer in this thing. We gotta get that out. We gotta cut spray it or whatnot.
It sounds like, the metaphor kind of writes itself, right? Like, I don't think any of us are like, why are we talking about trees? What's the big deal here? But I think you make an incredible point that no tree has ever like called your line and been like, hey, I'm gonna need a little bit extra maintenance here. It's
No.
on the observers, the people around the tree. It's on the tree trimmers to know what's wrong and to diagnose correctly,
Absolutely.
right? Same thing with us. Like we think we can diagnose ourselves. We think we can go, I think this is the real issue spiritually, but if you don't have other people in your life to do this work with, you're probably gonna have a squirrel in you pretty soon, right? What else do we need to know? What's like the number one thing that you would say is like, this metaphor between trees and people like blew your mind?
What blew my mind? That is a good question. I'm trying to think about what I...
Maybe you could tell us about roots, deep and wide.
Oh, roots. Thank you. I just need a little
Definitely,
guidance. But that, I mean, I think on the topic of, when you're settling as a person in a community, right? That's kind of what you've already been entitled, talking about. Not jumping around. Tree's not going to last long if it's not spreading its roots, if it's not anchoring itself. Something about roots with trees is that as big as you can see the canopy, like say, like that's me. Let's now double that in a radius, and that's usually how far out the roots are spreading. They're not entirely going that deep, but they're going wide. They're spreading out. They're trying to find good soil, good things that help them. So roots are a huge part of just, and that's when you see signs up top, it's like, oh, it's probably something down low. It might need a shot of something. You can actually inject stuff into the ground for the tree and be like, all right, here's a shot of espresso. Have fun, like fix yourself. Yeah, there's medicine that trees can take, and roots are important in that way. They need time. And they're slow.
Yeah.
Trees are so slow.
Yeah.
And the idea of taking time to prune a tree, it takes planning. You don't just walk up to the tree and like, oh, I'm just gonna go, cut half this thing in half,
Yeah.
right? It takes an immense amount of planning, and it's not usually just me. I'm usually talking with my coworkers or with my boss, and I'm like, all right, how do we attack this thing the right way so that we're not taking too much, but enough to alleviate whatever's hurting this thing, like an overextended limb or something that, like, oh, this other tree is way grown over this thing. I want some more sunlight on this puppy. Like, let's get that tucked that way. That way, this thing can thrive.
This tree needs some independence.
Tree needs some independence.
There's too much codependency between these trees.
Yeah.
I do a little.
Yeah. I think one thing in my discoveries, like in tying tree work to my spiritual life, is how often it's referenced in the Bible. I remember I did a Bible talk at UMass. Nwama, I want to say you were there. No one showed up except one visitor. And I did a whole Bible talk. It was like, oh, I'm so excited for this because it's all about trees in the Bible. Because in the Bible, trees are referenced over 600 times. If you just think about any kind of biblical story, there's usually some type of plant or a branch or an olive leaf or fruit of the vine. Like something is mentioned, and that's not a mistake. How we operate and function as people and our feelings and our emotions do tie into how a tree operates. And there are ways that, we're talking about pruning ourselves. God's is pruning us. He's the gardener. We're just his plants in his orchard field. But he sees the deadwood. He sees like the ugly, the ratty, the co-dominant stems that I'm like, oh, that might look good from the outside, but when these two limbs are rubbing, there's included bark forming, and that's weak. That's nothing. That's false. It might look good, but this is just gonna fall at any moment, right? When we're young, when trees are young, you want to solidify a single leader. You want to solidify, oh, when this tree is 30, 40, 50 years old, it is just one trunk. So actually pruning a younger tree kind of aggressively can be the difference of that tree having a successful life.
Whoa.
And I think a lot about when you become a new disciple, or even when you come to a new area. But kind of, it's more just becoming a new disciple, and it's like, it might feel like there's a lot of things attacking you. And it's kind of hard hearing the hard things when you're in it. Especially for myself, and I think the things that you put into practice, the things that you cut out in the beginning, make a tremendous difference later in life. Setting
So true.
I'm trying to think setting practices and patterns in discipleship, getting open, what we're talking about, not just bouncing around and being fake and like dodging people, like actually sitting still and taking it is a huge part. Being humble to advice. It's not fun at times, but it's a part of it because it will only benefit you in the future, because it will benefit you. It's going to hurt now. It's going to be a wound. It's going to be gone, but it's going to matter. You got to get it out.
I love it. Well, it sounds like there's way more to dig in here. I do have to wrap up. But
Yeah,
thank
I know.
you so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
Kevin.
no
Thank
worries.
you for
Thank
letting me
you.
hold your chainsaw. I should not hold this any. Should I? Maybe. Maybe it's a really good idea. But how cool? No, never mind. I'm gonna stop while I'm ahead, and I haven't cut off anything yet. I'm gonna start closing in here. The question remains: how are we going to be a community for and from each other? Right? How are we going to find spiritual formation through this pruning, trimming, cleaning work? I think this is the single greatest task of the 21st century church, because we're facing a generation and an era where people really earnestly think they can do it by themselves, and they're leaving the church in droves. How do we create an image of the church, a vision of the church that is so beautiful and fruitful and juicy that young people are like, I can't leave this. I've never had it better anywhere else. That is what is on the table for us. The alternative is in verses 5 and 6. I want to pop over here real quick as we close out. Verse 5, Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him bears much fruit. That's the vow of stability. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown away like a branch and dries up. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. This is the alternative. This is the gyro vague alternative, to be burned. And I want to warn you, this is not a threat from Jesus. Jesus does not make threats. He's not like, produce or else. But he makes it really clear that we can prune ourselves right out of community. Through isolation, through fear of exposure or fear of conflict. Guys, the end goal of our spiritual formation is to become love for one another. To become a community of fruit. And the genius of Jesus, the genius of our rabbi, is that he creates that transformation through one another. This is how he does the work. So deal with that conflict. Eat a meal with that brother or sister that you just don't get. Get advice from someone who has no commonalities with you. Go spend time with people in diverse walks of life in the church. There's plenty of them. There's plenty of people who are not like you in our church, and there's so much to learn from them. I want to close out here in Revelation 19. A little vision of what this looks like. It's a vision of the end times. He says, let's rejoice and be glad and give the glory to him, because the marriage of the Lamb has come and his bride has prepared herself. It was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Then he said to me, write, blessed are those who are invited to the wedding feast of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are the true words of God. The writer here, he's illustrating a marriage at the end of all things. And it's a marriage between Jesus and his bride, the church. This bride has presented herself as clean and beautiful, bright and clean in fine linens. Don't we want to be that bride for Jesus? He describes that marriage as a feast, and I would argue that what we're feasting on at the end of all things is the fruit of the Spirit. We're feasting and celebrating together because we've done the hard work of being the bride of Christ. There is no true spiritual formation without one another. It happens for community, it happens from community, and that is the gift that Jesus has given us.